Jose, are you
Yeah.
frozen?
Yes.
Doing ventriloquism. Welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and freeze during our podcast. I'm your host. Jose is late.
Oh, yeah.
I love it that he doesn't look at the nickname until at the end, and he's like, "Oh, damn,
It's like,
got
oh,
him."
damn it. I'll have something before the end of it. I am not your host, Jose.
And I am also not your host. I want that.
He does want that. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the most iconic movie items. First, we're going to hit him with a current event.
So recently they announced they had CinemaCon and all these different studios were out there just kind of talking about what's coming on the docket. Well, Sony announced that with their Craven movie that they have coming out, it's actually going to be a rated R movie. So it's going to be, I think, their first rated R movie that they did because even Venom, they went a PG-13. So they're taking it to another level. Supposed to be gruesome and bloody, which fits with Craven the Hunter. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, bring it on. I mean, I'm not opposed to R-rated movies. That's like all my favorite movies are R-rated. Like I actually wish like typical like children or family movies would go more R-rated. You know, it's time for they got to learn sometime.
Yeah. I like the Craven character. They should go R-rated just because if they stick to the same kind of rating of PG-13 or younger, they're just kind of stuck in a box. So give us variety. The Craven character was cool in the Spider-Man comics. He was cool in the Spider-Man cartoon. I'm not really enthusiastic at all about this movie, to be honest with you. I like the actor that's in it, but I just don't have a lot of confidence in Sony doing Spider-Man
Anything
projects.
good?
Yeah. So I don't know. What about you? Are you guys excited for it?
I wouldn't say excited. The Craven character is cool, but it's not one of the ones where I'm like, oh my God, it's Craven, the Hunter.
Yeah.
But I've got mixed feelings about it. Like, first of all, there's a little bit of annoyance because I was like, why couldn't you give the rated R to Venom? Venom needed the rated R. Like
Yeah.
that's a waste right there.
Yeah.
So there's a little annoyance about that. The other part, I am happy because I felt like one of the few who was not happy when Disney bought Fox and took all the rights of the Marvel characters that they had.
You don't say.
Uh,
You were unhappy about that, Jose.
yeah,
I would have never guessed.
but it was the mere fact that again, competition sometimes can breed quality in it, and as long as someone else had the other rights, even though Fox overall wasn't doing great with it, but we had got Logan, we got Deadpool, we had some really good ones. When they hit. And I feel that creates that competition where kind of they push each other to beat the other. But if it's all under one umbrella, there isn't that resistance. Uh, so it's good that Sony still has some rights to some of the characters because they can do something like this that maybe Disney, even though they say they're gonna do it, I'll believe it when it happens. But they can get ahead of it and be like, you know what, we're gonna make a rated R movie. And we're gonna go to those levels and those limits. And if that's successful, maybe Disney in the spirit of competition is like, you know what, let us also bring it up a notch and go to the rated R. So in that sense, I'm glad about it, but I'm also annoyed that they didn't do this sooner with a better character such as Venom.
Well, I mean, Disney is going rated R with Deadpool 3, right?
They
Yeah.
say I will
Yeah.
not believe it until it actually happens, because didn't wasn't there was another movie I believe that they were hinting they were going to go rated R. It might have been Blade, and then they came out that they were going to go PG-13
Mm,
with it. So I was
mm,
like, until it actually comes out, I don't believe that they're going to
yeah.
go rated R.
Did you see that Guardians 3? They're finally going to say the first F word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
I heard
such a
that.
big deal. Like, oh my
Yeah,
God,
they're
they
making
said
a
the
big
F
deal.
word.
Like, I guess Kevin Feige even asked James Gunn, like, "Do you really want to be the first director to say the first F bomb on the MCU?" And he's like, "Yeah, like that's what I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, that's my
I
thing."
believe he said, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Who do you
yeah.
think is gonna who is the most who deserves it the most in the movie? Which character deserves to say it the most, do you think?
It's got to be Chris Pratt.
Yeah, it
Really?
has to be. I think so, right?
I thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
Rocket.
It could be right. Those would be the two that I
Yeah.
would see over anyone else. It would
Mhm.
be those two.
You know what? They might throw us a curveball with Rocket just because we saw Peter Quill do like the middle finger.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming maybe they're gonna have another character do it just because you would expect Peter Quill to do it,
What if
right?
they all said it at once? Does that technically one time?
And
Does
they
that
do it like a
technically one
choir.
F word?
They do it a choir. That would
Yeah,
be
no,
awesome.
like
Like
They,
they sing it.
they just extend it, hold the note.
I
they,
think that would
they
count as one, right?
they
yeah.
Nick Cage it.
Hit that falsetto. Who's in that falsetto?
Yeah.
All right. So in this week's episode, we're going to talk about the most iconic movie items. So how do you guys define that? We'll start off with you, Jose. How do you define a movie item, movie icon item?
I feel it's something that, after you've seen the movie or seen it a few times, is one, something that you would love to own and have yourself. That's right there, that's iconic. Something that's easily identifiable to a movie or to a character. Even if someone is not like an avid movie watcher or an avid fan, you show them that and they're like, oh, I know what that's from or who that belongs to, even if they haven't seen it. Like I feel that is what I consider recognizable and iconic beyond just the movie itself.
Okay. And then for Kevin, what do you think? What are what makes an item so much that you want it?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with function, especially, if it does something cool and it's just like it just blows your mind as a kid, you're just like, oh my God, I want one of those. That's why I changed my name to I Want That. And because Jose was right, it's got to be something that you have wanted. I mean, there's so many recognizable items, in movies, but it's just like, how do you narrow down a list? It's like the ones that you wanted. Um, and also I would also think about if it's something really that you can hold. Because like I was trying to think, I'm like, what is an item? Is it something? Can it be a vehicle? Can it be something so large you can't carry it with you? But so it was a difficult time coming up with the list because I have so many.
Yeah. And I know that they have like those apps, where you have to guess what movie it is based off of one image, and usually they'll show
Yes.
you like an item that
Yeah.
kind of tells you what it is. Because if you see something, it's like, okay, I know what movie that is.
Yeah.
So it becomes so synonymous with that. Because like, well, you know what? I don't want to give any examples. We might have it on our list. So, do you guys want to get started? You guys want to get into it?
Well,
Let's
it was a
go.
tough time coming up with this list because I was 99% convinced that we all had the same exact items.
I
Yeah,
have a feeling we're gonna have
we
a
do.
lot of similar ones.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Kevin. I purposely chose some that were kind of outside of our wheelhouse just to give a variety. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily stuff that I necessarily really want, but it's stuff that is like symbolic of a movie or something that you would recognize. So
Mhm.
let's start
It
off
might
first.
not be something you necessarily want, but but will you turn it down if you got offered?
Mhm.
Exactly. There you go. Let's
Never
see
turn
that.
anything down. That is my motto in life. Always accept everything offered to you.
Yes.
There are no
And after
consequences to ever accepting anything.
and after three arrests, I'm still sticking with that.
The only three arrests are not three strikes. So, Kevin, let's start off. Since you're a guest, let's go first.
All right. You know what? This is a battle between this and a bunch of other items that are all from the same movie. So I'm just gonna go with the hoverboard from Back to the Future 2. That is something
Hmm.
I've always wanted, and it feels like something that you could not only does it have a cool function, but you could use it every day and it be functional. Other than some items I was trying to think of, I'm like, well, yeah, how practical is that going to be? Hoverboard, I'll use it all the time. I'll use it to go to the bathroom. I'll use it to go downstairs, to go everywhere except for on water. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox's hoverboard from Back to the Future 2.
You just have it next to your bed, get off, no slippers, just straight onto the
Yeah.
hoverboard.
Right on the hoverboard everywhere. I would be the laziest person ever.
So I was gonna say you could just put a whole six pack of beer, like, here you go, Kev, and just slide it over, and you're sitting on the couch.
Yep.
The hoverboard is the thing that I wanted the most out of anything as a
Hmm.
kid, like more than a lightsaber. I
I was
wanted,
just about to say that. It would be cool to have a
yeah,
lightsaber, but how, like, you can't fight anybody with it because
no,
nobody else has a lightsaber.
yeah. And you're a kid. You're most likely your parents would have taken it away. Like there's so many restrictions to a lightsaber. A hoverboard, I wanted that in the worst ways.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah. Do you have any fun facts or anything about the hoverboard?
I do not so much about that hoverboard. I do know in the original version of the script, it wasn't a hoverboard. It was like these anti-gravity shoes that they were going to
Mm.
use, and that kind of ties into the sneakers. But also when they were making the film, they I do remember that Robert Zemeckis was saying that the hoverboards were real because he wanted to. Uh, oh God, there's a dog. Get up. He wanted to, bring the imagination to all the kids and want to go see the movie, not let them know it was fake. And so for the longest time, I thought hoverboards were real because they came out and said that it was real.
Wasn't it about a year or two ago? I remember seeing a video on YouTube where someone basically made a hoverboard. I mean, of course, it wasn't to the extent
Yeah,
of what was in the movie, but they were able to get some elevation for at least a short amount of time.
there were two companies that made one. One was the Hendo hoverboard, and that one didn't see that was a huge chunky one that actually used like electromagnetism, and they got Tony Hawk to ride it, and it was really big and clunky. And then what was it? Not Lincoln. Was it some car company made one just for a commercial, just for
Yeah.
advertisement, and they used the super cooling a conductor method
Mm-hmm.
of it, and so it all fit inside within a skateboard, so it looked the most like a hoverboard, but
Yeah.
they had to put a rail in the ground of a skate park for it to actually go on. And it really is even today it's still a cool video to watch because
Yeah.
he is levitating, he's going, sometimes it scrapes on the ground, but it goes, man, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it was. It was a cool video. Okay. Jose, next item.
Next item. All right, I'm gonna go with uh, the Freddy design, the sweater hat claw combo that he has. I
Okay.
feel that's something that's easily recognizable even by people who might not be a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street. You see that claw, you see the red and green sweater and the hat, even in silhouette, people know that's Freddy Krueger
Mm-hmm.
overall. And I remember like reading into it. So each piece has like its own like little story. So like with the hat, Wes Craven when he was a kid. So part of the concept that he came up with Freddy was based off of there was this drunk guy behind this house that
Mm-hmm.
scared the crap out of him as a kid. And that hat was that fedora type hat is something that a lot of men used in that time. And this drunk guy that creeped him out had that, and that's an image he couldn't get out of his head. So he was like, "Gotta have that hat."
I remember him
Uh,
describing that moment. That was a really scary moment, the way he described
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and it was cool how he
It's
incorporated it within
traumatizing.
like the first movie.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the drunk guy didn't have his hands extending out
Yeah.
his
He could
face.
have. We don't
Yeah,
know.
he was
Oh,
saying he heard this guy whistling in the alley behind his apartment or house,
Mm-hmm.
and he was looking and he just saw this guy just like strangling around, was walking around. All of a sudden, the guy just randomly stopped and looked up at him in the window, and it freaked him out.
Ooh, that'd be super scary, man.
to the fact that as an adult he still remembered this and put it
Yeah.
into a movie, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, and then the green sweater. There was a 1982 study that came out saying that red and green was the most abrasive color combo that you can have
Interesting.
together.
Yeah.
So he was
Christmas.
yeah, so they
Yeah.
decided like, okay, that red and green, we need to have that for his top.
Yeah.
So they actually hired someone who was known for making sweaters for like other projects and movies, and they were like, we want something done with this red and green, and that's how we got the sweater.
Mm.
And then the claw itself, he wanted he wanted something that can stab, and he was trying to think of something that's you know feel human made but also animalistic because he
Mm-hmm.
pictured like claws from like an animal. So that's how they came up with the concept of this glove with the
Yeah.
knives there that they can stab. So that's how like the whole costume came together. And I mean, I'm a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, so there's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
little bias here, but I feel that whole ensemble together is very iconic overall. I had the sweater once. I remember when I was a kid for like a Halloween costume. Unfortunately, the hat I had, it was one of those cheap plastic ones you get at the at the
Yeah.
CVS.
Yes.
You can't get that. So I had that.
Yeah.
And then Kevin actually has a pretty cool
Mm-hmm.
uh collaboration glove, where he did a mix, and he's gonna go get it now, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
But
Yes.
he actually did a hybrid of Friday the
That's
13th
so
and
cool.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Look at that
Yeah,
badass
man.
boy right there. Look at
Look at
that.
that. Look at that. That
All
is
all
dope.
done by Kevin himself.
Yes, I
Yeah, I'm
like
still
that.
making yours, Jose.
And I will have my own. See, this is part of the I want
Yeah.
it.
And especially with,
Give
with
me
the with the
that.
glove, talking about, just to elaborate a little bit more, what Wes Craven was talking about when they figured out it was a glove, is because he was trying to break down just the origin of fear in mankind, and it went all the way
Hmm.
back to like caveman times. You were afraid of being eaten by an animal, and they all had claws, and so that's where he was thinking of the glove.
Yeah. I know as a kid I dressed up as Freddy. I loved Freddy since I was
Hmm.
young, and I'm so desensitized from horror movies, and I've always been as a kid because when I was young, like around 4 or 5, my older brother would force me to sit there and just watch like a marathon on Freddy. And I remember having a very vivid dreams about him, like nightmares when I was young, but then I got over it quickly. So that's why I have a special soft spot for Freddy, because he's the only one that I actually remember ever getting scared of for a little bit. But I love Freddy, man. That's why I even dressed up as him for Halloween, like as like a little
Yeah.
kid, and I had the glove and everything. I loved it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely twisted. That used to
yeah.
traumatize me as a kid too, because
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't understand why because he was sadistic and laughing at you when he would kill you, not like
Yeah.
Jason or Michael Myers who were just silent. It
That
was like
that's what I
it was
loved him.
messed up, dude.
Yeah, it was. And that's the great thing about, when we talk about these most iconic items, horror movies, in order to get a really good horror villain, they all have their iconic items, right?
Hmm.
Like you have, like in Scream, Ghostface, you have to have the mask. Like you have the mask with Jason, you have the mask with Michael Myers. Like they in order to have them at, like even with the Pandora's box that you have with Hellraiser, like they have to have their iconic item, and it's so important for a horror franchises to have that. So it ties a lot into what we have. But the next item that I have is it's the Wizard of Oz, the Ruby Slippers. Not that I ever wanted these. The reason why I mention it is because, it's so iconic, the Wizard of Oz. And they were originally supposed to be silver, is what they had them, in the
Yeah.
book, but then they changed it to red. But it's because they're so iconic, they're the most valuable items of film memorabilia ever,
Hmm.
because they're the quintessential movie icon items. When you mentioned the Wizard of Oz, but especially considering that movie was one of the first ones that was ever in color, that's why it was so significant with the
Well,
red
go get
slippers.
it. I'll have my hoverboard. Jose will have his Freddy outfit,
Now I
and you
have my
can just click
slippers.
your heels.
There you go. But I can also transport anywhere, right? Is that how that works or no?
No, I'm
No.
just
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah.
I
Only
just
to
have to walk around with
Kansas.
jingles.
You can only go to Kansas.
All right.
As long as it's
And
Kansas City, then I'm fine.
it's right, cause yeah, because they were silver in the original novel from Frank Baum, but
Yeah.
they changed it to red, but the screenwriters changed it to red because it played better off of the yellow brick road when they were filming. It stood out more, and that's why they switched it to red instead of
Mm,
keeping the original silver.
And Dorothy
okay.
was originally blonde. They ended up changing her hair color in reshooting, I guess. I saw pictures of it where she
Mm,
was Judy Garland was actually blonde
mm,
for the milk, because I think she's blonde in the story, in the actual book.
mm.
And they had her blonde, and then they changed it to, like her dark hair color.
Man, there's so many
Yeah.
cool stories about the Wizard of Oz, like so many fun facts about it. Because you even had the Tin Man, right? Wasn't the Tin Man originally cast as the Scarecrow? I think it was
No,
something like that,
there was a
or
different
was
Tin
he?
Man because they used uh really dangerous chemicals in
Yeah,
the makeup, and he
yeah,
ended up getting sick, and so they got
that's what it was.
a
Yeah,
different guy,
actor.
the Tin Man that we know. Well, for my next item is another one that I've always wanted. I'm just gonna go with the Ghostbusters Proton Pack. I
Yeah.
mean, like, it was just such a cool item to see as a kid, because it had so much stuff on there, and it just had such a cool shape and obviously a cool function because it could capture ghosts. And you remember being a kid and being afraid of the dark and seeing ghosts. If you had a proton pack, dude, nothing was it like you felt in charge. And I just love the design of it, and the sounds that it make. And I mean, it was just such a cool item that everybody wanted one. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ghostbusters Proton Pack.
Yeah, Jose.
No, that's a good one. Actually, I'll just jump right into mine because it actually links up with yours. Because they were actually created by the same person. It was the Ecto One.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, so go with that. So both of those, the Ecto One design, the Proton Pack, a few of the other gadgets that they used there, they were all designed by the same person, Steven Dane or Stephen Dane's with the PH. But the funny story about that is that they actually misspelled his name in the credits and they miscredit him in the wrong role originally, and he designed all of these things. And so
Do you know
I'm
the
not sure.
sorry.
Yep.
No, I'll let you
I was
finish.
I was gonna say I don't know if they've I'm assuming they fixed it since then, but in the original they credit him as a different role and they misspelled his name. So like
Do you know the cool factoid about the siren of Ecto One?
what?
What animal did they use to make the siren?
Mm,
Banshee.
a dingo?
Cat.
A cat?
Then when you hear Ecto One, that's a cat.
Ah. Okay, at least it's not something weird like grasshoppers mating or something. Uh,
No, that's the sound of the proton pack.
uh, but getting back to like the Ecto One, so originally it was supposed in the script, it was like supposed to be like a 1975 Cadillac ambulance. They ended up going with like the 1959
Hmm.
Cadillac overall ambulance hearse like combo. So originally there was three vehicles to play two vehicles in the original movie. You had like the pre I guess transformed Ecto One. Then you had the final product Ecto One, and they had a backup, which was like in case the car needs any maintenance, we have a backup car there. So, but it was like this is funny because I've seen other movies that involve cars, and especially TV series too, and they go through so many cars throughout
Hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And then here, you just had three cars. One that stayed old, one that was transformed, and another one basically for parts. So I thought it was cool they were able to do it with just like three cars.
Well, they did
Yeah.
the same thing for Back to the Future. They had three DeLoreans in the original film. One was like the hero car that had everything, it was completely done. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was one that was like chopped in sections. So they could film inside the car. And then there
Mm-hmm.
was another one, I think it was just to make it lighter to go faster because with all
For the
that stuff
driving
on it, it
scenes.
was just it couldn't even get up to 88 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
44. You're like
Mhm.
Yeah.
the camera guy is walking right next to it while it's driving.
Just moving it really fast, the camera.
Yeah. Uh, but with both of these items, with the Proton Pack, with the Ecto One, these are
Yeah.
things that I'm sure you can even go. The movies are old, and I mean, even before the reboot came out, or the one we don't talk about before that. If you were to go to like the younger generation now and show them those, they'll be able to tell you, "Oh, Ghostbusters," even though that
I
movie
hope
isn't from
so.
their time.
I
Mhm.
hope so. Yeah.
The majority
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
be at least like, hey, Ghostbusters. They'll be able to identify what it's from, or at
Yeah.
least like, oh, it's the movie where they fight ghosts or things like
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah.
think again, that's what make these so memorable.
Yeah. It is. So I have one that it's Pee Wee's bike in Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
That's a
So
good one.
I chose this one because yeah, it became so iconic with that movie and the way that it worked about. So Paul Rubens, of course, who played Pee Wee Herman, was on the studio writing the movie for Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And everybody around the studio was riding bikes. So he wanted one. So he ended up getting a 1940 Schwinn, but he loved the bike so much, he ended up scrapping the script that he was working on and then wrote Pee-wee's Big Adventure centered around the bike so that the
Oh, that's
movie
funny.
item
Ah,
became the central plot of the movie. And I was like,
That's
man, that is
cool.
so cool. Yeah. And it became so iconic with it. And the movie itself, it's, directed by Tim Burton. You notice it, because I remember being a kid not knowing that it was directed by Tim Burton and knowing the little dark things out of it. And then when you go back and you watch, it's like, oh, that's really cool, man. And like
Mhm.
the item becomes a central part of the story. So good stuff.
I did not know that. Good fun
Hmm.
fact.
Fun fact.
Okay, this one is like it doesn't have any cool function, at least that we know about. They never really talked about it, but it would just be cool to have. I always wanted the idol from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark that he gets at the
Mm,
beginning of the first movie, the golden head one. I just always
mm-hmm.
thought that that was such an iconic prop just to have as a
It
prop
was.
laying
Yeah.
around. That would just be so cool to have. And I don't have any facts about it other than that it made an appearance in Star Wars Solo.
Mm,
You remember he goes to that what was it, Paul Bettany's gangster room, and he has all
yeah.
these items, and in the back there you can see the idol from Indiana
That's
Jones and
cool.
the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's cool, man. The fedora to me is always so symbolic of Indiana
Yeah.
Jones. Like you see the hat, you know. I thought about putting down his whip because as a kid I always wanted one. Like I wanted a whip when I saw it, but the hat is just so symbolic of him,
Well,
man.
then you know what?
I
Since
feel it
Jose
goes
took a
to
whole outfit, I'm gonna do the hat, the
There you
whip,
go. And
and
the
the
idol.
idol
There you go.
running in that little temple, trying to get away from the giant ball. We're all trying to run
Yeah.
away from a ball rolling towards us.
That's a metaphor for life. Yes, it is.
And I did get the indie hat. I got the hat
Yeah.
last year. I got it
Hmm.
handmade from Greece.
Nice. Hey.
yeah. Well, you actually, I remember you dressed up as Indy
Hmm.
Hmm.
for one of the Halloween parties that we had in school.
That's like I have a couple of like go-to costumes that are just ready to go. One of them is the Indiana Jones get up. I now that I have the hat, the actual hat to go with it, the shirt, the little like knapsack, and I got to collect a whip next, and that's about it. And a ghost, but I have a Ghostbusters jumpsuit. It's like the same jumpsuit that they wore in the movies, and with the patches and customized patch with my last name on it.
I always
Yeah.
liked that the hat was a symbol, right? Because when he was Dr. Henry Jones, he was just regular that, but every time he puts on the fedora, now he's becomes a persona. So it sort of feels like Batman when he puts on his
And you
costume.
don't even need to see it. It just needs to be the silhouette. You can see the silhouette and
Exactly.
automatically know who that person is.
Yeah. I remember that the very first time they ever introduced Indiana Jones, very first time ever, you don't even see him. You see a
Yeah.
shadow.
Mm-hmm.
That's the very first time, so that way it looks like he's larger than life. So that way, when when you see the shadow broadcast on the floor, it's like, man, that looks so cool. I
And we
love that
knock
introduction.
the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull a lot. It was such a bad movie, but the opening of
Yeah.
that movie is not completely terrible. It felt pretty much in the vein of Indiana Jones up until
Hmm.
the nuclear bomb part. But
Yeah.
just all that the I had watched that recently this year with Augustino. I
Hmm.
remember watching it and because I hated the movie so much, I'm like, let me just try and watch it again. And I just really remember loving the opening. I thought it was such a
Hmm.
classic indie type of
Hmm.
reintroduction to the character, and I hope they do something similar to it with this new one. This was it next month? No, June, right? Does it come out in
Yeah,
June or
June,
I
July?
think it's June.
June. Yeah. Did it get any better in the new viewing?
No, I just remember seeing the opening scene and
Yeah.
thought it felt like a Steven Spielberg Indiana
Yeah.
Jones sequence, and even the way that they lit it. I remember seeing the light, and you could see it felt like old school lighting, and it felt like the old school film grain texture was really cool.
Yeah. Okay.
See, I think that's perfectly fine because I feel, yes, the hat is recognizable, the whip is recognizable, but it's the whole ensemble together. I see
Yeah,
that as one
yeah.
piece because that's like Indiana. And it was funny, like I had read that for like first of all, supposedly it was Harrison Ford picked out the hat
Oh, did
at
he?
this, yeah, Herbert Johnson shop is what the place that's the original maker of
Okay.
like the house of the hat, and he had gone in and he had picked out the hat. And then also regarding like the bullwhip, I guess it wasn't always used in the movie because it actually can't hold the weight of a person. So they would
Oh,
replace
gotcha.
it with like steel cables when he would be swinging because the
Mm,
whip was not going to hold them at
yeah.
all.
Never.
Oh man, could you imagine just getting a bullwhip and trying that out on yourself? Like, you know what I mean? I got a
Yeah.
whip. I'm gonna do it. The movies lied to me. Fall into a pit of lava.
Yeah.
Once you
Bastards.
catch your breath like 30 minutes later.
Yeah. All
uh,
right, Jose, what do you
all
got?
right. That's a good one. See, I feel the next couple I have can kind of just be blended into one because they're kind of the
Jose
same
is
thing.
trying to find a cheat code to get all these
I know.
together.
Go get your game genie. Jose.
And you touched on it earlier, Dan, when it comes to a lot of those iconic horror movies that we grew up with. The mask is such an important part of it and can easily identify the movie or the villain just based off of the mask itself. So we have the Jason mask, the Michael Myers mask, and the Scream mask. These
Mhm.
are three masks that you just take the mask itself, you show it to people, and most people will be able to tell you what that's from, or at least who the killer is.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, Scream would be the exception where it's like there's so many killers,
Yeah.
but they'll be able to recognize that. A few like fun facts about it. So starting with the Michael Myers mask, uh, originally there was four mask options out of it. And the Captain Kirk mask, which they bought for like $2, was the one that was picked because it had the least facial features that someone can like pick out. So that's why they went with that one. They like removed the eyebrows. They adjusted the eye holes to better fit like their image, and they painted it white. And then Shatner didn't actually even know that was based off of him for a while. Then he was finally told, and he was like honored that hey, they used
That's
like his
cool.
likeness like for it. So that's that one, and then we have the Jason mask, also on a callback to Kevin's glove. But the Jason mask, because as we any horror fan knows, and for those who are not a fan or haven't watched it, he started off basically with a sack on his head. He didn't have the hockey mask.
No, he started
Uh,
off as a deformed child.
yeah. uh, but the mask is actually it was there was the 3D effects supervisor. His name was Martin J. Sadoff. He was a hockey fan, and he had his hockey gear on set. And he actually pulled out the hockey mask just for a lighting test. And Wes Craven saw it and he liked it.
Wes
Mm.
So,
Craven.
sorry, not Wes Craven, because I was just talking. I was thinking about script, but
Sean
the
Cunningham?
yeah, the director saw it and he liked it when they were using it for the lighting, and he was like, "Oh, let's do something with that." And then, of course, they adjusted it and redesigned it to kind of fit what they like, and to fit the actor.
Yeah.
Also on top of that, so just a random thing where he's just using it for lighting, and they're like, "Wait a second, we can use that. We like that."
Mhm.
And then lastly, the screen mask. It was another situation where they couldn't decide what mask or what they wanted to use for it, and then they were on a location scout, and then they found this mask in a box in a garage at their location. And
Mm.
Wes Craven, this is what I had on my mind, saw it and he liked it. So he was like, "Can we do something with this?" And they tried all these different versions, and just nothing can grasp on. And they were like, "Wait, why don't we just get the rights to this mask because this is something that already existed."
Did they get the
Mm.
rights to it? Or did they just change it a little bit? Because I know one of the shots in the original film, when he was killing Drew Barrymore, one
Mhm.
of those shots they used that mask that they found on set,
And look
the
different.
one that you're talking about. I know that they used that from one of the shots, but I do remember them talking about getting the rights. I was just unsure if
Well,
they
it's
actually
interesting,
did.
Kevin. You could see it here.
Okay.
Whoa, there it is. Yeah. It's cool though how what you said, Jose, about how them using the image,
Yeah.
because in each of those movies, you had a different killer that donned it, right? That wasn't them, right? It was like an impersonator or something like that. And they all did that in their own movie because it wasn't always, it's almost like the mask itself became the character rather than the character itself.
You know what? That is 100% true. Because when you think of Scream, you think the classic mask, but it's always been a different killer the entire
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah.
almost just like they should do a movie where it's just a possessed costume that just goes around and kills everybody. Because I mean, because you call him Ghostface,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so weird how it's always a different actor underneath, but you still recognize it as Ghostface.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a cool contrast between like these three killers who use mask, and then we spoke about Freddy, who doesn't use a mask beforehand, and he's a more vocal, killer when you compare it to Jason and Michael Myers. But it's like with Freddy, you have to have, well, Robert Englund made that role where it got to the point where it's like you have to have
You have
Robert
to.
Englund. While
Yes.
with the other ones, with Jason, with Michael, with Ghostface, you
It's
can
just a
put
mask.
anyone behind it
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it can still work.
It's just a
Michael
mask. Yeah.
Myers, Jason put someone with size
Yeah.
who can be intimidating, and
Yeah.
they can make that work. The maskless killer, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to be more specific of who you put there.
Exactly. So for the my last one, I thought about doing the golden ticket of Wonka because you always associate the golden ticket. I ended up going with Wilson from Castaway. So
Oh, okay.
in that one, the item itself was a character, and
Yeah.
you saw, and they needed it because you needed to have Tom Hanks bounce and have dialogue off of somebody. And the interesting thing about this was that the writer actually went to like an isolated island to write this thing, and a volleyball actually washed up on shore. So it was like a true story. So the thing
Oh
actually
man.
washed up on shore, and that's how he tied it into the movie. So it's fascinating how you have real life incidents that we mentioned and mostly all of the items that we mentioned and how they became iconic, but it was almost like happy accidents. And that's what's interesting. It's like so a lot of these items were not necessarily created by the writer themselves, but it worked in the process of filmmaking because whether it be the actual writing, whether it be pre-production, whether it actually be on-set filming, things we as audiences gravitate towards certain items and we make them iconic, right? Because we become obsessed with them, whether the filmmakers actually intended or not. So like what you said, Jose, about Jason's mask, did the director necessarily know that it was going to be that iconic? Probably not, right? He probably just thought it looked cool. And then we as people are like, oh my God, that is Jason. That is Jason Voorhees. And it became what it was.
Well, I think it's cool
Great
because I think
explanation.
it adds to that thing of when you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these some of these items like that mask or the scream mask or things like that, they saw it. Or if Harrison Ford with the hat, if he's the one who picked it out, someone saw it and was like, yes, this is it. And the fact that that is the same reaction that the audience had, where they was like, yes, that worked perfectly, I'm going to remember that. So like you said, those happy accidents. While then with like Freddy, everything was calculated, like even to the fact that they use like scientific study to pick out the colors. So you got like that difference between both, but both create the same after effect.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how you said the color combination of green and red when those are Christmas colors. So it's weird how Christmas is also symbolic of
Christmas is evil, Dan.
Yeah.
exactly
Santa?
consumerism.
Dude, when are we gonna start questioning about Santa? What's he doing up there with all those little people? I actually I have one
Yeah,
last item. I know that
yeah,
you guys are
okay.
running out of time,
No,
and
that's good.
you
That'll
guys
be
all
your
started your
closer.
last one. I'm like, holy crap! If that was my last one, I wouldn't have chosen that one. No,
Oh, okay.
I was gonna choose one item off of this particular item, and then I'm like, Jose's doing cheat codes. I'm gonna take the whole thing. I'm gonna use Quint's boat, the orca from Jaws. Because
Mm,
I just it's such a cool boat, and I remember thinking I've always wanted a boat. I always want to be the guy who just lives on his boat and just goes wherever the fuck he wants. And that's I want Quint's boat. Like it's such a cool, rad little boat with character, and I just thought it was so cool. And I'm gonna take the orca,
dude,
yellow barrels and everything.
it reminds me of the Millennium Falcon, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Like in its own way, where it's so iconic. It's such a mishmash of parts thrown together, but intended parts. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like for the owner of their craft. Like I absolutely see that. With Star Wars, like you could have gone lightsaber, you could have gone Millennium Falcon, you can go Darth Vader's mask. Like there's so many iconic things in Star Wars, but that's a good one with Jaws, man. Absolutely.
And you
I was
guys
gonna
can,
say,
because it's something that all your friends can come enjoy with you instead of just
Yes,
passing around as one thing.
exactly.
I was gonna say, I think we were so like conscious on trying to pick different things that
Yeah.
I know I can see it in the comment, probably from George. How do you not do the lightsaber? Where's the DeLorean?
Or
Like, I
Batman,
think,
right? The Batman
or the
costume or something
Batman.
like
Yeah,
that.
I think we were so conscious of
Batmobile.
trying
Yeah,
not to pick something that everyone's gonna pick that we kind of went around some of like
it
the
is.
most common choices.
It is.
But
Yeah.
that's for our listeners. If there are anything, which there are plenty of things that we missed, put them down in the comments. What are some of the iconic things for you guys?
Exactly, because I feel like we talk about so many of the same movies over and over. Like we really made an effort to choose different movies and different projects and
I
stuff.
mean, not
But
my first two choices. That was definitely like you
that's
guys.
fine,
I
man.
want the thing that I want.
Dude, absolutely, man. Okay, so last question before we close this out. What is the one movie item you would want out of all of them?
Ooh, out of all of them, that I just
Everything.
fuck, let's do the hoverboard or the orca.
I'd go hoverboard.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
I go
hoverboard because
hoverboard.
boats are
Yeah.
expensive, man. It's expensive upkeep. There, I'm gonna go with my hoverboard.
hmm Because
Yeah.
the orca, like boats actually exist. Like you can just
Mhm.
purchase a boat and you have a boat.
Yeah.
There's no hoverboards.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. Kevin's argument for the uses of the hoverboard kind of convinced me that I
Yeah.
would have to go hoverboard also.
Right?
We always go laziness, man. Yeah. I always go lazy.
Because a lot of the other things are things that you're not going to use on a consistent basis. They might be
hmm
more memorabilia, things that you hang or you have like on a bookshelf or put away just for display purposes. The hoverboard, you're gonna hover.
You're gonna
Yeah.
hover.
Like you're
But
gonna
not
hover.
like if I could have gone proton pack, but I'm only gonna use
Yeah.
that when there's a fucking ghost. Otherwise, I'm gonna burn down the whole house.
So no ruby slippers, anybody? No, no
No,
ruby slippers.
unless it's just for the strict monetary value that I can sell it,
Yeah, that's
because
true.
then you wouldn't
Or
have it.
if it really makes you transport, that's pretty cool too. Or you can make a wish and then you can get that. Like Aladdin's genie would have been the genie lamp would have been
It can
awesome.
make you transport, Dan, but you have to always wear it and you can never take them off again. Even when we go to a cool party, you got to explain to everybody why you got the ruby slippers on.
And you have to have your hair
Yeah,
just
and
exactly
braids.
like Dorothy every time. You can't cut it. But on that note, thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. Follow us on Instagram. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. I am your host, Jose is late. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I am not your host. My wish list, and you can find me at This Is Me Nombre on IG.
And I want that. And you can find me at Twin Pines Video on Instagram and YouTube.
Yep.
And
Please like.
TikTok now. I started a TikTok.
Hey, there you go. Go to his
Yeah.
TikTok and subscribe. We have one too, and we never use it, but we
Yeah.
should.
I don't know. Now I'm picturing like Dan in the red slippers at a party, and people start making fun of him, so he starts trying to teleport away. Like, I don't want to
Hey,
be
hey,
here.
I would
There's no
own
place
that.
like
Jose,
Kansas.
you don't know me. I would own that. I'm like, look at these things. And I put my feet up on the table so that everyone could see it.
And then
Look at this.
I come
Chiefs colors.
whipping away in the corner out of nowhere to save Dan on my hoverboard. Come on, Dan, I got you. Those slippers don't work.
And then as we
I
go,
need
my hair braids are blowing in the wind.
I need a hero playing on the radio at the party. Like, who put that on?
I know. All right,
I would adjust my hoverboard to play music. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Bye.